Thank you very much for having me here. And after we have had two very engaged and interesting speeches, we are probably going to a bit more dry material, which is I have two objectives to present to you. One is how we look at climate change capital in investing in this field, in the clean tech space, in particular related to buildings and smart cities. And the second thing is to show what we have done, of course, and what kind of activities we did in this sector. I need to press which one?
The right one.
Right one. That's the right one. So before I want to get into that, I'm a bit emotionally confused about the things that have happened over the last couple of months and years. So you see here, the red line indicates basically the development of the clean tech economy. It can be megawatts installed or whatever you prefer. And here we have a timeline and a couple of things that have happened in the market. And while we have had until 2008 a nice developing, still small, but nice developing economy, it has halted here and we don't really know where it's going in the future. So I want to paint a little bit a picture that shows the issues. We have had a couple of issues. The Spanish regulator has killed the feed-in tariffs and basically a whole market. UK ROCs were in question for a while. We have had an extension of the nuclear power. We have had the feed-in tariffs in Italy disappearing and coming back again. We have had nuclear now not in anymore, I don't know, question mark. So you see there are a lot of things that makes me a bit worried what is happening in the market. So we can see a phase here when actually the market should take off and grow nicely, that we have here a few people making some interesting decisions. Now, what is important about that is they are introducing uncertainties in the market, in particular for investors, not just equity investors, but also banks. And these uncertainties in the regulations create a difficult environment. So what do investors look like? Do they face higher investment risks, and do they want higher returns for that? What is the situation? So here, this is probably a bit a discussion with politicians and a cry for politicians to be stable, to have a long-term view. I know this is more a wish than a realistic scenario. Some people even claim that politicians are like chameleons, changing the colors whenever it is appropriate. I don't care about that. The question is just, if they could tell me what color they have in 1 year's time, then I could make the planning in terms of investments. So I will go to the next slide and just jump now back to climate change capital. As the name says, we are convinced that capital is important in the climate change space. And we have formed a group in 2003 to basically put capital at work in order to drive the low carbon economy. Since then, we have been able to invest about €1 billion into different assets and investments, and we have built an advisory business that started with policy advice and now does also corporate finance advice. I'm a partner in the private equity activity where we manage a 200 million fund, and we have invested about half of that into several investments in the clean tech space, and I will get to that. We also have a property fund that invests in green buildings in the UK. Probably you are aware of the insulation issues in the UK. The houses are not built with the very high quality insulation, so you can get a lot of capital gain or efficiency gain in electricity by just insulating the business. Next point is now we dig into the private equity. Just a few examples. What are we doing? We are focusing on 5 sectors. If you look at clean power, clean transport, energy efficiency, waste management, and water, you find those issues as probably some of the major issues for cities, and in particular energy efficiency, and probably power as well for the buildings. We typically invest 10 to 20 million in an investment, and we are not focusing on startups. We are focusing on companies that are growing in the market, that are a bit bigger, that already have a proven business plan. We are European focused. What is our approach? I think that is important for people looking for money. We have quite a lot of experience in investing. As a group, we are 9 people. We have invested in the past in over 150 deals. And we have also been on boards on 90 of those 150 deals. I think we are with the group, because we are not just one fund, we are a group of 100 professionals and more. We have quite a nice network of people knowing different aspects of the climate change world, of the clean tech world. I think one of the important things for companies is also that we, as a team, even though we are London-based, most of the people are not British in our team, and as you can hear from my accent, I'm also not British, so we speak languages like German, Italian, and French, Scandinavian, and the most important thing is we have done deals in these countries. So we find it very important that people, management teams, can trust us and have access to us through the local approach. And the last thing I wanted to mention, then I stop this, is we still have a capital to deploy, which is not always so common these days. Now, what have we done in this smart building, smart city applications? I think we believe this is quite an interesting space for investors, given the market opportunities, the problems that are, but also the investments that are being taken in this market. We have invested in a company that does LED lights for refrigeration. So that is the biggest problem in lighting as of today, is that you don't want to heat up a fridge while you are turning on the light. That doesn't make sense. So with LED you save that. It's a company that has been growing dramatically, because basically all the retailers have return of investments of 1.5 to 2 years if they deploy this kind of technology. It's a no-brainer, but still a lot of people don't do it. Then the other thing is we have a service company in the UK called Climate Energy. This service company is basically providing the access to house owners, to capital, so they can do insulations, cavity insulations, and start to do the first activities related to energy efficiency. We bought the company actually, and we acquired 2 other companies into that company, and now we are quite a significant player in the UK market by doing this. We have in Italy experience with the solar market, so we have invested in quite a substantial company that builds rooftop solar plants and also greenfield solar plants. We have in Berlin here an investment in Sulfacell, which is the company that produces the most beautiful solar panels. So if you want to put solar panels on your roof and you want to have a nice architecture, that's the way to go. If you want to gain a lot of benefits out of the feed-in tariffs, you go for the traditional silicon panels. And then one very important investment that we did related to this topic is Power Plus Communication, which is a company that enables a smart grid communication, basically the demand response activities. And they have done fantastic installation in the range for the e-energy project in Mannheim, where you can basically all what people talk about that should be done in the future, they have installed already there. And I will show you a very interesting example. Now, in terms of investing in clean tech, just a few numbers. I threatened in the beginning that it will be a bit dry, so I have to come up with a few numbers. One is what has been invested in clean tech over the last, since 2007. And we see here on a quarterly basis what has been invested. But what is more important is what was the share of energy efficiency investments. And that has even grown faster the percentage of energy efficiency invested compared to the investments in the clean tech space. So there are people out there that think energy efficiency is something that is really needed and probably also has a high potential for a return of investment. We have seen here in the end of 2009 a few Americans doing a lot of investments in smart grid applications, which is driving these statistics. Now, where do we stand in the buildings and the cities environment? I think you will probably hear that during the 2 days quite often. There's a high proportion of energy going into cities and of course into the buildings. It's quite a low energy efficiency. And there's a lot of improvement potential and the security of supply. So what are the drivers? I mentioned government policy would be a nice driver, and there is a needed driver given the low electricity prices that we are based on. Energy conservation or resource depletion, climate change, and even economic performance, this is what we are looking for, is often a driver of investments in this field. Roadblocks that we see is the legacy infrastructure. It is important to understand if you invest in a company that the product that they deliver, the business model that they have, they can implement and are not dependent on a lot of different aspects. We see in the energy efficiency space, we see quite a lot of system-dependent solutions. I mean with that, if you do on one side, for instance, smart grid, if you do a smart grid application, you are dependent on the infrastructure, on the utilities playing with you. You are dependent on consumer behavior, they liking it or not. So it can be quite difficult to do some clean energy activities due to legacy infrastructure. Consumer behavior is something, I mean, it's for everybody, it's clear we should reduce electricity, but if you save, by investing 1,000 euros, you save 5 euros per year, you're not going to do that, even though it would make sense. The majority of the people wouldn't do it. And you are used to certain behaviors that wouldn't allow you. I get later to one very interesting example to that. We have incumbent industries, of course, you always have that try to defend their position even if it is not the right position, and the system approach I just mentioned. A few other numbers in terms of buildings are a significant energy user. We see here the building's primary energy consumption over the years and by type. And we see that, of course, electricity is the biggest thing. It's one of the most inefficient energy sources, but it's the one that is being used in the building sector. So the building sector consumes approximately 40% of the energy demand. It is the building sector. It's not transportation. It's not the industry. It's not all the other things you could imagine. It's really the building sector. In the US, electricity represents about 74% of all the primary energy that is used in buildings, and only 47% is delivered. So electricity is the key problem. A lot of power is used, but electricity is the problem. And the residential sector, again, is an important thing. The next chart is very complex, but it just shows the energy flow, and you probably can't read it, but you have here gases. How does the gas flow? You have here coal, you have here electricity, and this is petroleum for the UK. This is an example from the UK. It looks substantially different in different countries, but what looks always the same is these here are the losses. About 50% of the primary energy is just lost. And this part here is the consumption of the household, the domestic consumption, which is a substantial part. And what is also very confusing is that this is a mix of different sources, primary energy sources. Now, one of my favorite charts is the energy efficiency is a big issue for the grid and for the usage in households. And if we first Sorry, now I showed you all the slides. If we look here first at how households are consuming electricity and energy, electricity is this, we see lighting is a large part, refrigeration, heating, other equipment. I put in here an arrow to show this is actually quite variable, this electricity. Today we have the fridge who tells you when the fridge wants to use electricity. The fridge doesn't care if it is low tariff, high tariff. The fridge doesn't care if the wind is blowing or not. Our energy consumption, and that's quite a big part, it's 15% of the refrigeration, it's including freezers, is decided by the fridge. It turns on and off whenever it wants. It tries to maintain a certain temperature in it, but it turns it on and off whenever it wants. Duke Energy in the US have done an interesting research and installation where they have put, I need to start differently. This is the energy consumption over minutes in a transformer station. On a transformer station, you probably have a few households attached to it. So it looks quite dynamic. And the problem is, you as an energy provider, electricity provider, you always need to make sure that you can cover these peaks. Over the day, that goes up and that goes down, etc. But just over a few minutes, you can see the variability. Now, if you have the ability to manage your fridge from external, just to shut it on and off when you want it, without that anybody realizes it. You don't have to be afraid that your ice cream comes out of the fridge because somebody else is managing it. The fridge is doing it anyway. But if you start to determine that, or the utility starts to determine that, how it's going to be done, you can basically flatten those lines. This is quite an amazing finding. You can just see here how much electricity you can reduce by that. Okay. So I need to be quick now. So this one I jump over. In terms of investment for us, it is quite important 5 aspects. It has to be asset-light, scalable solutions, sustainable and interesting value propositions. Here is the political environment important, proven business models and defendable IP. What is the last sentence here I just want to mention, this is quite critical. We don't believe that we believe that viable business models in green buildings and smart cities are incremental to existing solutions. We don't believe that you can change everything at once. You need to build on what you have and develop that further. And this is just a summary of whatever the ideas were that I have communicated to you, how we see certain sectors, how attractive they are or might be, given in different aspects of the investment criteria. And you see asset light is quite an important thing. Scalability, of course, there are differences in here. If I take lighting, for instance, it's quite simple to understand that lighting, if you can have a proven business model behind it and a strong value proposition, that it should be easier to implement. It's not always defendable and you have a few big players, but that is a different story. Service companies in this field is something that we quite like, as we have done investments in that field and gained some experience in that field. And the smart grid application is also very important. I think the smart grid application is the most important thing that people should invest. Within the smart grid applications, we have today the problem that the utilities are not moving with that. The technology is available. You could implement all the features to reduce the electricity. About 20% of the domestic electricity is movable. You could do it, but the utilities cannot charge it to the users on the electricity price, and therefore the investment costs they're not entering into the investment costs. That is the biggest problem. It's a system problem from financing and political frameworks that doesn't allow the people to roll out smart grids right now on the continent. It's not just in Germany, it's all over on the continent. But I have seen some developments on the new energy law, and that looks very promising. So thank you very much for your attention.
just on time. Can I have some volume? Okay, you're just in time. Thank you very much. Do you have a question for Bruno from Climate Change Capital? If yes, please raise your hand and find a microphone runner. In the back, there's a question. Ankit?
Yeah, my question is, like you mentioned, one of the roadblocks is systems approach. Yeah? And then what would be the possible solutions to tackle that? Because if we look at new businesses, especially in the clean tech, and say it's a lot connected to other fields. And so what would be your suggestions, how to tackle that?
It's a very good question, probably one that we have asked ourselves a lot of times. And for sure, there is, if you need to change systems, there is a high reliance on political developments as well to enable those. But they need to be systems approach. We are facing right now a non-system solution, which is the solar, right? We are building solar all over the place, and the grid can't take it anymore. In certain spaces. If you look in Bavaria, how many solar plants that have been built, we pay feed-in tariffs, and they are shut off if the grid doesn't support it. Yeah? So that my answer is they need more integrated solutions from the regulator.
All right. Any other question? Yes, please.
Just I have some question about the markets. Are you sure there is a market for smart grid or business control? Are you sure? Because you have to change the behavior of people. And how can you be sure that this will work, not only with the politics behind you, but as well, can we really change the behavior of the people and make them be more green and accept to have device everywhere to turn on and off their fridge and etc.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very, very interesting aspect. Duke Energy, from this example, what they have done is they have collected data from households, a couple of thousands, and then they have made to the people an offer. If we can manage your appliance, you pay $20 on average every month, flat fee, and the bill was on average 25. What came out is for Duke Energy is they increased their gross margin. They doubled the gross margin by doing that, just because they could manage that. So if somebody comes to you and says, you can get it cheaper, you can save some money on that, you might be interested in it. I understand the point is electricity price is not high enough right now. Right? I shouldn't say that, but compared to the alternative solutions that we have, it's not high enough, so people don't care if they spend $20 more a month or not. But the utilities have an incentivation if they are only distributing energy to make that efficient. If they are producing electricity, they don't necessarily have the same incentivations.
All right, so let's have a final round of applause for Bruno, and here's your speaker gift. Thank you very much. We will see him again at a panel later on.